Hello and welcome to another pattern recognition video. Today featuring attack patterns, discovered attack patterns, I should say. So let's begin here. I'll try and do at least 10 puzzles. So if you're not familiar with pattern recognition, basically you want to solve a set of puzzles. You go through them multiple times, the first time nice and slow to see what's going on. And then instead of forgetting about those puzzles, you go through them again up to 7 times. And by the time you get through them 5, 6, 7 times, you should be almost having them memorized where you can just blast through them and solve them very quickly. And hopefully that'll help cement those patterns into your long-term memory where you'll be able to use them in your own games and help you improve your chess. So let's begin here. It looks like this knight was checking the king, and the king steps over to G1. Now, these puzzles are rated 1,000 to 2,000. That way there's a mix in here for beginners all the way up to expert players. So, if you're lower rated, you should still be able to figure these out because the tactic is going to be a discovered attack. So what is a discovered attack? Basically, you have one piece lined up on another, like this queen lined up on the king, and that allows us to move the knight out of the way, discovering this attack by the queen on the king. So, obviously we want to move this knight out of the way, but where? Where is best? Well, this is a great famous pattern where we're going to deliver a double discovered check that'll lead to a mate, a smothered mate with this knight after we sacrifice the queen. So how do you do that? Well, pause the video at any time if you want to think it out, on your own. If not, here we go. We're going to move this knight here, checking the king. At the same time, we have a discovered check by the queen. And the only thing that can be done, remember, when a king is in check, usually he has 3 options or less, and those are to capture the attacker, block the attacker, or run. And if none of those can be accomplished, then it's a checkmate. But the rules change when you have a double check. So we're going to move the knight, checking the king with the queen and the knight at the same time. And when 2 pieces are checking the king at the same time, the only thing that can be done is for the king to run. So we're going to move here. The king will have to go back into the corner. And then we can sacrifice our queen with a check here, backed up by the knight. And so only the rook will be able to capture. And then our knight can move back to where it started here, delivering a smothered mate. So check, sacrifice the queen, and then a smothered mate. So, outstanding little pattern there. I've only ever been able to play that in maybe a few games ever in actual chess games, but it's pretty awesome when you're able to pull that tactical pattern off. It's I don't know, a pretty good opportunity if you get to set one of those up and try it out in your own games. All right, that was rated 1408. Let's move on to puzzle number 2. Okay, the king has moved forward attacking the rook, but once again, we have a situation where there's a possibility of a discovered attack here. So the queen is lined up on the king. We have a piece in between the queen and the king, this rook. Now, where do we move that? So, and also, what is best? Where's the best place to move this rook? If we just move it, back along this G file, well then the pawn could possibly go here and just block. So maybe we want to knock out this pawn. If we do that, the king will be under attack. But then, do we have a good follow-up? So, and let's look at the material to see what's going on. If you're trying to solve a puzzle or a problem in one of your own games, you're not sure what move to make. Well, a good system is to count up the material. We have 4, 5, 6 pawns. Our opponent has 5, so we're ahead by a pawn, but our opponent has an extra bishop here. So overall, we're down material. So we need to do something here. But what? I don't know. Maybe the best move would be to just go here, grab that pawn, and then if they block, with their pawn or their king moves, well then we could grab another pawn here, attacking the queen. And then we could, I don't know, is that going to be enough though? If we grab this, discovered attack. So remember, when you're trying to figure out what moves to make, always look at checks first. Now here we have this queen lined up, so that could be a good check. The rook could go here, but it would just be captured by the king. So I don't know. I'm thinking the best move, unless you see something that I don't, is to grab this, discovered attack on the king. So then we'll only be down, what, the equivalent of a pawn. So once the king moves or the pawn blocks, well, then we could grab another pawn. Do we undouble our pawns by going that way? Well, let's move here. So now, because they didn't move this pawn, our rook is under attack, so we probably have to go here, attacking the queen. Unless there's something better. But no, I don't see anything. So we probably just got to grab another pawn here. And now, what is the play here? Why didn't they defend here? Because, now we can just grab this and go ahead in material. So what now? Oh, this is looking dangerous as well, because there's a threat of a mate right here. So we have to be careful where we move our king. Remember, when your king is being attacked and put in check, capture, block, or run. Well, we can't capture this queen. We don't have anything that can block. The only thing we can do is run, and we have to run towards the center, and then the queen or the bishop can start checking us. So we pretty much have to go there. Now, we don't want to go back here, or that could be a disaster. So we pretty much have to go this way. And I guess we'll be able to escape then, and we're just going to be up. They'll be able to grab this pawn, but their king is kind of out in the open. Ours can maybe get over here and find some cover behind these pawns. All right, that was rated 1717, so a little trickier. Let's move on to puzzle number 3. And, feel free to leave comments at any time. I always enjoy hearing what viewers and subscribers have to say. If you have any requests for something you want to see in the future. Also, I guess I should try and speed this up. I did have a recommendation by a viewer to try and, move a little faster and maybe shorten my explanations. All right, what are we going to do next here? The rook has just moved here, cutting our king off, and the threat is to go here and deliver a back rank mate. So because of that, we need to do something first. But how? Okay. We have to deliver checks, or at least look at checks first, as they're the most forcing. And the only check we have is to bring this rook up to here. So once we bring the rook up, delivering a check, the only thing the king can do, there's no way to capture or block the rook, so he'll have to move here. Then we can deliver a check with this knight. The king can't go here because of this pawn covering that. So the king would have to move back up to the back rank, and then we set up a discovered attack. So pause the video if you need more time to think. If not, here's what we're going to do. We're going to check. The king will go here. We're going to check again. Then the king will go where? Maybe out towards the center more. But we can drop our knight back to here with a discovered check. And then, depending where the king goes, if it goes here, we deliver a mate with our rook here. If the king goes here, we do the same, delivering a mate with the rook here. So this will demonstrate an interesting little pattern here. So now we have that discovered attack by the rook. The king moves here, and we deliver the mate. Now, this pattern's very interesting. If you have a rook on one of the side squares, here, 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 or here, that are around the king, as long as it's protected, of course, by the knight, it makes a T pattern of the squares that it covers. So all of these, and then down through the middle, here. So we have that T pattern. Now the only thing the rook does not cover is here and here, these four squares. So you just have to make sure those are covered, which they are. The pawn is covering two of them, and the knight covers the other. And luckily this pawn, here is covering the final square. All right, on to puzzle number 4. That one was rated 1556, so I hope these puzzles are okay for you, especially if you're a beginner player. Just remember that the theme is a discovered attack, so hopefully that'll be a good hint. And in a normal game you won't have those hints. So let's see, we just had a capture here. Now this bishop is under attack. The bishop is pinned to our queen. Well, not really. Our bishop is protecting our queen, so we could move that bishop. But do we have something better? All right. Well, if there was a way we could move this bishop to some advantage, because if we moved here maybe and attacked the rook, well, then our queen could be captured. We would have to take time to respond. So let's look at the material real quick. We have 3 pawns. Our opponent has 5, so they're ahead by 2 pawns. And we have the bishop pair, but they have 2 knights and a queen and a rook. So we're down by those 2 pawns. So we need to do something here. All right. And we do have 2 attackers here as well. Do we try something like taking this with check, because checks are the most forcing moves, so you definitely want to take a look at those. If we deliver check, now if the king, remember the 3 options, capture, block, or run. If the king runs to these dark squares, well, then we could move here with a discovered attack on the queen. But most likely, if we go there with a check, the rook is going to capture. Oh, but then perhaps we can go here attacking. The rook will block. We can take with check. And if the king takes, then we have that discovered attack set up. A check, and the queen will be able to pick off their queen. So a lot going on there. You know, pause if you want to think that out on your own. But if you're ready, here we go. We're going to take. Now we can check. We take again. And then we have a discovered attack on their queen, delivering this check. That's why it works. So they have to deal with that. You know, they're going to lose this queen anyway, so maybe they block with the queen, but then we can just go ahead and take it. And what do they get? The bishop out of it. But our queen should be, you know, more than a match for a knight and 2 pawns. All right. On to puzzle number 5, and that one was rated 1736. So puzzle number 5, they push forward attacking our knight. What can we do here? We're looking for a discovered attack, or you know, maybe trying to set up a discovered attack. Well, let's see. We do have this rook lined up on the king, pinning this pawn. If we move our knight here or here, probably here is better, because then maybe we could follow up with a threat, something like this. Oh, and our bishop is preventing that king from running here. So maybe that's the best way to go. So check, a forcing check move here. The king can do what? Go to a dark square, maybe? Then what do we have? Oh, maybe we can sacrifice our queen. If the king takes, we bring our rook over. They could block with their bishop. We take the bishop, and then we're covering the h-file. Our knight is covering here, and our bishop is covering here. So pretty crazy attack pattern here, but it starts with that move. Then just a double check. It looks like we can sacrifice the queen. The king will be forced to capture. Then we have the knight and the bishop covering these squares, so we just block, or sorry, check again with the rook, and they block with the bishop. We just take that. So that was a great little attack there. All right. On to, we're halfway done, on to puzzle number 6, and it says that one was only rated 1370. So if you have some puzzles that, maybe they're not rated very high, or they're just giving you trouble, those might be patterns that you're unfamiliar with, that you need to solve, some puzzles related to that type of pattern. Really pay extra attention to those ones that give you trouble, because that might be a weak spot in your tactical arsenal. All right, here we go. We have a rook stepping over, pinning the rook, but then we could capture, but then they would capture. So what can we do here? Well, we do have check possibilities with this bishop. If we go here, it could be captured. If we go here, the rook could move out of the way and capture. And then what? Okay, maybe. Well, also if we just go here and don't deliver a check to their king, then they could just capture here. And then we capture. So let's look at the material. We have 4 pawns versus 4, and bishop versus knight, which is the bishop is usually stronger if there's pawns on both sides, but here they're all on one side of the board. So this knight is also on an outpost at the moment, although it's on their side of the board. If the knight moved to here, that would be a little bit stronger. Okay. So what can we do here? If we go there, well, also the king could just, capture? And then if we captured, their knight would just capture. So it doesn't look like that works. So maybe we have to go that way. If we check there, we're protecting our rook as well. If they block with the pawn, but remember, when you're in check, capture, block, or run. So they would probably just capture with this pawn. And if they do that, we could grab this. If the knight captures, we grab the knight. Then they could just capture here, and we capture here, and I don't really see, did we even have any advantage by doing that? Well, our rook would be attacking this pawn as well. All right, so is there anything I'm missing? I don't know. I think that's the way to go here. Discovered attack on the rook. We'll have 2 rooks attacking there. The king will be in check. The other rook here will be protected by the bishop. So once we go there, they'll probably capture. Then we can take, maybe we want to take with this rook first. If the knight captures, our other rook comes in. We're attacking this pawn. If they check us, our king can just step forward. All right, that's what I'm going to try. No, they do not like that. So what am I missing here? Do they want that move? If they take, then we take here. So, no, they don't want that. Huh. Okay, what about that move? No. All right, what am I missing here? Oh man, okay. Yeah, sometimes this is a valuable lesson. Sometimes you have to switch up the move order of your trades. So we go here first, and then we can deliver the check and pick off the knight. So I just didn't set that up, and I overlooked that move. So this would be a perfect example of a puzzle that I should try and go over, multiple times to become more familiar with that mistake that I made. So now we can just go here, delivering the check, pick that off. even if they go here, well, then we can still just move and protect our rook. All right, on to, that was rated 1858, so that one was a little tricky. On to puzzle number 7. What do we have here? Queen stepping over, attacking our bishop. All right. Not looking too good. All right. The bishop is just under attack. So what do we do about that? If we move the bishop here, it's protected by the pawn, but the king would be in check, but it would just, grab that perhaps. Look for checks first. So let's take a look at our material. We're ahead by what? 3 pawns. 3 pawns and a rook versus a queen. So technically they're ahead by the equivalent of 1 pawn. So if we move here, we deliver a check. Oh, and the only thing they can do is block then. Because we're covering our rook. The rook is covering all of those squares. The king is in a stalemated position. If we check with our rook, the only thing they can do is start blocking. They go here, we take. Queen goes here, we take, and it's a checkmate. Okay. I guess it wasn't a checkmate. And that's another thing to remember when you're solving tactics. But we do have the discovered attack now. So we go here, protecting our bishop and attacking the queen. So we'll be able to pick off the queen here. And now we're just ahead 3 pawns, which should be enough to win. All right. Well, let's take a look at problem number 8. Knight has jumped forward, unleashing this discovered attack on our bishop. So do we take their bishop, attacking their queen first? Also, we have the option of capturing with our knight and delivering a check. So remember, you always want to look at those checks first, as they are very forcing. Okay, and do a quick check on the material. We have 7 pawns versus 7 minor pieces. Excuse me. We both have the bishop pair and a knight. And I think we're down a rook. Looks like we're down an entire rook. So that's not so good for us. All right, checks first. If we go here, we deliver a check. The king moves here. We can move back with a check and a discovered attack on the queen. So if they take the knight, we grab the queen, and we give up 2 pieces for the queen. We come out ahead. Oh, we get the bishop as well. So that should make it worth it. All right. We go there. Now we grab that queen. And once they pick that off, then we'll have what? A queen for their rook and knight. And we have this dangerous passed pawn here as well. Okay, on to puzzle number 9. All right, what just happened? They captured. Which way do we go here for the recapture? Do we capture with the pawn? A double discovered check. The only thing that's possible. After that is for the king to move. And then we could check here with our rook. The king would have to move here. And then what do we do after that? Okay, let's take another look at this. If we go here, we take the queen. Material would be what? We're down a pawn then. But the king, it would be a discovered check by the rook, a double check because the pawn would be attacking at the same time. And remember, when there's a double check, the only thing that can be done is for the king to run. So the king would have to go here. Then we could continue the attack by moving our rook up here. The king would have to move here. And then what? So here, king goes here, rook goes here, king would have to move here. Maybe we check with our bishop. If the knight takes, well then our pawn could promote. All right, let's play this out. Now, generally you want to calculate as much as you can in your head before you start making moves like this, because in a real game, you have to make sure that the entire tactical sequence of moves is correct and that you're not going to be losing afterwards. But I'm trying to keep the video moving along. So that's the way to start, and probably bring the rook up now. But once the king goes here, after we bring our rook up here, what do we do then? If we continue to attack with our rook, this knight could take. So we probably have to go here. And then what? So we go there. Now, if we bring our bishop here and they take, well then this square will no longer be guarded and we can promote to a queen. So if we go here, what's the other option? They run. And then we can check again. So I'm thinking, that's the move. Okay, now we can just promote. All right. Well, now we'll just be winning with that extra queen. Okay, the final puzzle, number 10 here. So bishop has what? Just developed out here, lining up on the area, the pawn in front of our king. What now? If we're looking for a discovered attack, if there was a way to move this knight and then grab the queen, but if we move that knight now, they can just take our queen. If there was a way to do it with check, which there is, we could go here. So hopefully you found that move. And now, the king is in check. They would have to capture the attacker. You can't block a knight or run. So the queen's under attack, so the queen would probably take. And then our knight, or our pawn could take. So there we go. All right, so they could have taken with the queen, and at least gone down, grabbing some material perhaps. But now we can just take. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed those, 10 puzzles. Most of them I think were rated under 1500. So perhaps, if these were too easy for you, I'll have to bump the rating level up a little bit in the future. So, as always, feel free to leave comments. I enjoy hearing what you have to say out there. Also, like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.